What's up, boys? Locker Room Life Podcast, episode number 2. Boys, we made it. We made it through the first episode, and what a beauty it was. AJ Galante, couldn't have been a better guy to put in our first interview. So I hope everybody listened, loved it, because we had so much fun doing it. Jay, we missed you, bud. Wasn't in that one, but I know you were listening with a smile on your face once you heard the final product. But I'm one of your hosts, Frank, here with my boys, Logan and Jay. Wanted to just kind of let it fly around with my boys, and then we'll talk about who we got coming on.
Boys, pleasure. Like Frank was saying, I'm pumped up to get this out here, pumped up to get the second episode, get rolling, get a nice flow of things. And yeah, I think that this episode is pretty cool with everything going on, but I know that there's been a lot going on in the fellas' lives. There's been a lot going on in the hockey world. It's been nice to see. Jay, what are you doing down there?
Staying busy, Frank and I had a big weekend, big tournament. Didn't get to see each other on the ice, but a lot of fun. 4 nations. We got a lot to catch up on,
Oh.
Where should we start?
Let's just, obviously, the 4 nations recap. That's where you got the Team Canada buddy hat on today, just commemorate the glorious win by my boys at Team Canada. But again, I know we've all been kind of chatting about it, but what a tournament, eh, boys? Like, couldn't have done a better job of the NHL putting together an event. I know we kind of were just going through the details of it. It's like, you never really know what you're going to be expecting. Was it going to be like a fluff fest? A bunch of guys just out there, mini vacay, getting out in Montreal and Boston. But boys, it was, what a doozy. And that just shows you again, hockey, just guys playing for their country. And that is something that just continuously is an example of what sets us apart as hockey players. And I don't know, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on kind of the whole thing.
Do you think that's the difference with like the 4 Nations tournament? Is that, you attach like a country to these guys and then they show up? Because I don't think anyone cared about winning $1 million or whatever for the All-Star tournament. And
no,
Ovi wanted a car that one year, real bad. But I think that's still a joke, right? So
it is.
You think that's what it is, though? You just like, hey, you guys are playing for your country, and a tournament that maybe doesn't mean anything, but kind of sets the stage for the Olympics.
Yeah,
it was amazing to watch. I would. It was weird going back to watching like the first games, whatever Saturday when they came back.
Yep.
I was like, this is different. It's still the NHL, but it's different. It was like maybe a step slower or something. Like,
I think
Nations was intense.
Yeah, I think it just depends on, I guess, when you have Sweden and Finland. I mean, they're still amazing teams, but nothing compared to the level of the players on USA and Canada. Like, that final game was just unbelievable. It was like I was watching a Stanley Cup final game. It was crazy. And then the first game between them covering, like, it's the most hockey coverage we've gotten in ages. ESPN picking everything up, the fights, like, I mean, that's what hockey's about.
Yeah. I know, Jay, you mentioned it, kind of like the PK Subban comments that were kind of flying around about, he was putting the NBA guys on blast a little bit about kind of sitting out for a little back-to-back. They got their little pinky nail hurt, so they're not be able to play. And you see guys out there in a quote-unquote exhibition tournament laying it all out there, brothers fighting brothers' teammates. I mean, like we were talking about it, I was just sweating watching that first 9 seconds of that game, and I'm like, this is one for the ages. But
crazy.
I don't know. It's just I say it all the time, but just so prideful to be a hockey player, and just like that. I'm like, that is why we do this, and that's why the sport is so amazing. Just seeing stuff like that. So yeah, it was so killer to see.
And just the wrong guy to leave alone in the slot,
Fuck off.
Just the wrong guy.
Fuck off. Like, what is going through our heads? Why he's the next coming of Jesus, and we're just leaving him stranded, just wide open in front of the net for where grandma keeps the cookies, wherever he can put it.
Yeah, I think Matthews just got excited to see Marner with the puck. He was like, that's my boy, that's my buddy. I'm going to go put some pressure on him. He's not getting a pass by me, yada, yada, yada. Well, here you go, McJesus. Thanks for coming. See you later. Lights out. Game over.
A question I have for you guys is, like, who's your unsung hero of the tournament? Who's someone that like was like, damn, like he can really play? Like
Easy.
Easy? Give it to me.
All at the count of 3.
I have a few, but I'm gonna go.
1, 2, 3.
Slavin.
Oh.
Close.
It was definitely close. I think Werenski I think that solidified his Norris. I mean, just like unbelievable masterclass of a defenseman. Same with McAvoy, same with Slavin. Our back end was just killer, bro. Just so shut down. And someone who's a little under the radar, I said Granlund had a hell of a Four Nations tournament for Finland. It was unbelievable.
Couple late goals in that game, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was kind of unfortunate to see. Obviously, God, McAvoy was a beast in that first Canada-US game. He destroyed
hit.
He destroyed.
I've never seen him get hit like that. I've never seen
Crosby. Yeah, on a buried him on the back wall and then gave him just a firm cross check to the mouth. I mean, that just shows like he's not fazed by legend status or anything like that. That's when I'm like, this is for real. This is not like, hey, we're just powder caking around. So I mean, McAvoy was a beast. It was tough to lose him. And then, I mean, I know we talked about it, but Slavin, Jesus, the guy he was already kind of under the radar going into the tournament, just his defensive prowess and kind of everything he brings to that table, but the plays that he makes, and it's really the things that you don't always see on the stat sheet, obviously, but when you watch closely the minor little stick plays and things to break pucks out, I mean, just like, what a technician. It was so amazing to see.
Yeah, it was one for the ages. I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, I doubt that. I mean, maybe because the numbers were so good, I doubt that they'll bring it back again. But I honestly think this was just a big tune-up for the Olympics to get ready. But I'm not sure. I hope they do. It'll be awesome.
Boys,
yeah, I mean, it's tough because the big worry is these star players getting injured, huh?
Yep, Matt Tkachuk, he's out. He's out right now, and he's back in Florida. So it's like putting that on the line for the country. I mean, it's obviously any hockey player on earth is going to do that for their country, but it's just they have an actual job to do on top of it.
Yeah.
I heard this quote today from Brendan Hagel, which I thought was amazing. He said about his fight, he said, it wasn't for the fans, it was for the flag. And I'm like, this guy's a legend. So that just so sick. Good guys win. So happy that
the hell? That was backhanded.
I'm
kind of a tariff joke.
Yeah. You didn't need to bring politics into this.
I would have screenshot your faces when I said that. That was amazing. Oh, man.
I just forget every second that you're not Canadian. I mean, that you're Canadian.
Yeah. But you know what? It was a good tournament. I mean, it could have gone another way. 2 best teams were in it, I believe. But it's so funny. It's Sweden. Wait, it's kind of misleading because Sweden was actually, quote unquote, like didn't have a win, but they were right in the games that they actually played. It just was kind of the way that it's such a short tournament. That's the way the standings kind of played out. But that squad, Jay and I were watching that first game, and I know we were kind of talking about it that day also, but Sweden was right in it. They ended up losing that one in overtime, but I mean, that's a great squad come Olympic time. Obviously, we know not having Russia, I don't think they're going to be in the Olympics either, which
they're lucky.
I don't know. Politically say what it is, but I mean, hockey and especially around the Olympic time, Russia is always a force to deal with. And I think on the world junior level and also on the Olympic level, it kind of hurts to not have them in there, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
I agree. Some of the best players in the world. I mean, right now, like think about how good their team would have been. Kucherov, Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, Ovechkin, just like nuts. I mean, I heard Jay was looking like Ovi out at the tournament. That was the rumblings I was hearing.
Good segue. Good segue.
Love it.
Had a Hattie.
Jay, one
goals, had a few assists. Got robbed in a game. Semifinals. What?
It's a good little segue. Jay, why don't you fire it off to what we were doing last weekend?
Well, there's a big-ish tournament in Southern California called the Throwback Classic. the Ducks kind of organization has a little hand in this. Shout out. Yeah, Frank and I played in the same division. Unfortunately, we didn't see each other after the round robin, but there were teams from everywhere. Mexico City had a team that was good. There was a team from Australia.
Yes, I just heard that. I was going to talk to you about that. I just heard that yesterday.
I think they were in a little lower division, but
Yep.
so cool that they made the trip. They looked good. Like their unis looked good. They had like tracksuits that looked good. And then a bunch of teams that we had like Portland, Seattle. There was a team from Texas.
Dope.
I mean, there's 7 divisions, I think. Or no, there's more than that. There's probably 10 divisions, let's say. Our division was one of the 3 silver divisions, and there was 6 teams in our division. So there's a lot of hockey. It's going on between 2 facilities. There's 6 sheets total over the weekend. It's wild. Yeah. So that was cool. We played 4 games. We got knocked out in the semifinals. Pretty controversial call.
Couple tough bounces. It's all right, boys.
Yeah. You don't make a game-changing call with 1 minute left in a 3-on-3 overtime. You know what I mean?
For context, Jay's been talking about this for the past week and a half.
I'm back checking my ass off. I lay it all out. I slide on my stomach with my stick out through the passing lane, get a piece of the puck, stop a 2-on-1. The guy who's looking for the pass backdoor goes down after he misses the puck. I get a call. Tripping call. 50 seconds left or something. So I'm in the box. The boys hold on to it. We go to shootout. I get out of the shootout. I get out of the box. This guy from the other team's bench goes, "Hey, he can't shoot. He was in the box. His penalty didn't expire." The ref goes, "Oh, yeah, you're right." We go, "Are you sure about that?" And then he goes, "Oh, yeah, the head ref said something about it." We're like, "When? When did you talk to him?" The guy that's running the tournament. I don't see him here. Anyways, I didn't shoot. We lost. Awful. And then we looked up the rules later. Of course, I could have shot. It's the way it goes. See you next year.
Yep. Yeah, you will.
Heartbreaking.
Keep the number down. That's all you gotta
I was
do.
watching it. I told Jay after when I saw that, I was like, Bush League call.
You know, I know the ref. He's a kid. He's a great kid, good hockey player. But I was just like, should we? How long do you want to draw it out? It's a men's league tournament. Of course, you're bummed now. I wanted to win one for the guys, but what do you do in that? What do? You just like give them the book. Hey, you better find this page. What rule is this? We looked it up on our phones later, and in the tournament rules, it just says we follow, the NHL rules or something along these lines. And so it's a blanket rule book, right? But yeah, it said any player with a penalty in overtime is eligible to shoot as long as it's not a misconduct. So,
Bush League.
It is what it is. But
amateur, it's really just amateur hour out there. But
I think I was definitely more bitter about it a few days ago, closer to the event. But it was fun. It was what a great weekend.
Yeah, it was good to see. Good to see Jay's team go. Obviously, it was fun to kind of look at the possibility of us playing each other. But I was playing with a bunch of guys that had been playing with the Zambonis. We've been playing together for a good amount of years. Just it's like family, so it was just good to kind of make it into a really cool social gathering as well, which as we always talk about, right, like adult league at this point is just getting with the boys, having fun, zipping it around. So it was super fun. We ended off on a good note, so that's always nice, but I'm not going to be bitter about the fact that the team that beat us pretty handily was using a guy that wasn't on their roster. But hey, I'm not going to bring it up. But
Get
over
it, softy.
He also didn't play like European professional hockey.
Yeah, he didn't.
Guys,
he just
you guys are going to be soft and crack on men's league teams for bringing in ringers. Come on,
it's okay because when we played them with him, we beat them big time, and then when we played them again without him, they beat us. Yeah, that's hockey. you know?
It just is.
Okay, I can't talk about this anymore because I'm.
All right, we're moving on. We are moving on.
Fine, we'll go fast.
But yeah, boys, super hyped on the interview that we have coming up this episode. Mackenzie Murphy, Logan, kind of run with it a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, shit. Where do I even start with Mac? Mac really. This interview it just kind of encapsulate the ACHA as a whole. I mean, I know all of you guys probably listen to this podcast have seen what the ACHA has done in these past few years, beating a few NCAA teams and kind of just crazy stuff, buzz around the league. And he's really the one who started all that Hockey House Pod. He kind of put it on the map for players like myself growing up. Really wasn't an option to go to ACHA. It was always juniors, and more high level players. I know I say it in the podcast as well, but more high level players are just going there, and that's really because of him. He's built an empire behind it and is doing some pretty cool stuff in the hockey space.
The guy's crushing it. What a nice guy too. Take his time out of his day to spend it with us, answer some stupid questions. Like I said in the interview here, I do wish I knew more about the league back then. I think that would have been a fine option for me. Didn't really know what I was going to do. I think my career as a hockey player was over by the time I was going to college. Was interested in other things, but I took a 3-year break, at least a 3-year break from hockey. And I think I probably wouldn't have done that had I had some knowledge of this and maybe the option. But super cool. We'll be tuning in more.
Yeah, we talk about it, Mac's a really cool individual in regards to kind of a self-made man in building that business as a player, just being able to really clear a path, right? Great conversation.
Cool stories towards the end. Just amazing stories. Good question from Frank, I think, about his top 5 memories. I think it was really cool. He was doing all this, starting this pod while he was playing and getting a lot of respect from guys in the league, for talking about the league and just bringing it to some more viewers and letting people know it's out there.
Yeah. Like I said, he's a trailblazer to say the least. Frank, I'll let you intro everyone into the beginning of the episode 2.
Without further ado, here is Mackenzie Murphy.
Welcome back to another episode of the Locker Room Life podcast. Here with my good buddies, Frank and Jay. Here's another one of my good buddies, Mackenzie Murphy, the mind behind Hockey House Pod. Kind of really brought a big boom to the ACHA world and really put it on the map for everyone. More recently, he's working with Selly Hockey. We all know their hats. We all love them. And Mac, I mean, thank you for coming on. We're really excited to talk with you about everything. Talk to you about Selly, talk to you about Hockey House, talk to you about media and hockey and just bullshit. Just talk about everything.
Thanks for having me. I'm so pumped. Anytime you get to go behind the mic and you don't have to prep the notes for the show is a great time. I'm a good talker and I can just answer questions and I could talk hockey for days. So I was telling, chat with Logan beforehand. I was like, yeah, just tell me when and where and I'll be there.
Yes. Hell yeah. Well, honestly, really talk about your current duties. Talk about what's going on in your life. Talk about Selly. Talk about how busy you are. I mean, like we were just saying before we started recording, like busy's good. Busy's good. Good for business. Busy's good for everything.
Yeah. So I'm currently I'm in a pond hockey hangover right now. We did for the first time ever, we put a Selly hockey team in the Lake Champlain Pond Hockey Classic up in Burlington, Vermont. So my brother, who's my boss, and we fielded a team. We went up there and we actually competed pretty well. Like pond hockey is a whole different breed of hockey. We have a good men's league team that plays in a B division in Boston and we hold our own. And so we went and played in the A in this pond hockey tournament and we played some teams that just like know how to play the game. And it was a blast going up there and just, hanging out on the pond, drinking some beverages with the boys, going out into the town and, hanging in the Airbnb. Like that is just like what every hockey player's dream is when you hang them up after the college days and being competitive. So that was great. And then, to roll back into the office and get right into the nitty gritty of it. We got some, custom team orders that we're working on. We're working on our, some of our seasonal hats, the summer hats. So it was a nice breath of fresh air to go do something, business related that wasn't sitting behind my computer, but it was nice to hop back into it. And, like you mentioned on the ACHA side of things, getting ready for the national tournaments and the ACHA and AAU college hockey side of things. So keeping an eye out for stuff like that and, doing my best to stay on top of it with the Hockey House Pod in between.
So I think the best place to start is kind of with Hockey House Pod, like how it all started, how it kind of came about. It's just a good story. So like you to kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I grew up I always feel so funny, like, cause I feel like I start this story like really far back. Like I go back to like youth hockey and everything, but I grew up in northern New Hampshire. It was like one town, one team, one rink. And that was like the youth hockey I played growing up. Mount Washington Valley youth hockey. Like we didn't have AAA, AA. Like I didn't even know like what any of those letters meant until I got older, right? Like that wasn't an option for me as a kid. And, grew up, my dad was always the coach of my age group's team and, played with the same guys growing up. So it was, hey, we're going to all go to high school together. We did that, sort of like the Friday Night Lights feel of it, like Wednesday and Saturday nights, there was no better place to be in town than the rink and, full student section and everything. And, the little kids high-fiving us outside the locker room. So I, had never considered once like leaving and going playing junior hockey or travel hockey. And so after 4 years of high school hockey, I was like, all right, am I going to go to juniors? Am I going to go to prep school? I was the kind of kid who would get my hands on anything in high school. Like I was, in student council, I was in, Spanish Honor Society, National Honor Society, every club I could be in and sport I could play, I was doing it. So I didn't really think the junior hockey life was cut out for me. And so I went, and just did a fifth year at Bridgeton Academy. And it was there that, halfway through the year we were playing. And I remember talking to my guidance counselor. She was like, you got to go check out Syracuse University. Like, I know you mentioned you wanted to play college hockey and you wanted to be a communications major. Like they have a pretty legit club program and they have one of the best communication schools in the country. You should check it out. And so I went, I toured, I loved it, was sold on it from the minute I saw one of the guys on the team walking around in like a Nike puffer jacket. And I was like, I want to come play hockey here. Like if I get to walk around campus wearing one of those things, tell me where to sign the dotted line. And so I got in, I went, and that first season playing club hockey in the ACHA was one of my most fun seasons of hockey. And it was because it was so unexpected. Like I had no idea what club hockey was going to be like. And all of a sudden I remember, the pandemic hit and I'm sitting at home in March and I'm like, wow, like I cannot believe that I got to experience all those things, in one hockey season. We got to go play at Liberty in front of 2,000 fans. My name got booed in the starting lineup. Like my face is on the Jumbotron and they're booing me. And then, a couple months later, we're flying out to Colorado and we're playing Colorado and Colorado State and, the pregame meals, taking buses, hanging out in the hotel. Like I legit felt like an NHL player. And it's so funny looking back because like we were playing at some rinks where there was only like, 15 to 30 parents in the stands, but like everything that came along with it was something I had never experienced before. And so over that summer, it was, the writing was on the wall that we weren't going to play again my sophomore year because of everything that was going on with the pandemic. And so I remember listening to an episode of Spittin' Chicklets and they interviewed, a guy who had played at Penn State in the early 2000s and went on to play in the ECHL. And he was telling some crazy club hockey stories. And I was like, man, like he didn't even tell the best club hockey stories. Like I could get better stories from like my teammates on the bus ride home from the game. And it's like, if I could get stories like that out of my teammates, I can only imagine what the stories would be like from kids at Kentucky, the kids at West Virginia, the kids at Liberty, the kids who are out at Oregon. And I remember talking to my dad about it, being like, I wish club hockey had a Spittin' Chicklets. And he was just like, I'm sure you could figure out how to do that. And I figured out how to do it. I met some kids on TikTok who are making, club hockey content and just sent them some DMs. It's like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this whole thing. I think that was like the first time there was a TikTok scare, like this app might go away. So I'll find out what we're going to do when the app goes away. And we were going to start a club hockey podcast. And we had never met before. And we started the whole thing. And honestly, like from day one, it always got bigger than I ever expected it to be. Like I remember messaging teammates that I played with in high school, teammates I played with at Bridgeton, being like, hey, I know you guys play club. I'm starting this thing. Like, dude, just appreciate you got to follow. And, we celebrated when we hit 1,000 followers. We celebrated when we hit 2,000. We celebrated when we hit 3,000. And then like, now I look like we celebrated, 50,000, 60,000. It's like, I can't even, it's so funny looking back that I was celebrating like 2,500 followers on Instagram. And it has gotten way bigger than I ever imagined. The things I've done, the people I've met through it are crazy. And it was all just, because of my experience in hockey. Like from day one, I've always believed like everything happens for a reason. So I'm just so thankful that I've had this path and that hockey has kind of guided it because, never in a million years did I imagine I would have started something that became so big. And I'm so grateful for all the experiences along the way.
Before we move on, can I just jump back real quick and just I just had to know why you were getting booed.
I thought it's funny because if at that point in time the podcast wasn't around then, but I think Liberty is always the favorite in club hockey, so I think we love to hate on them from the hockey house perspective of things. And maybe a couple years later, those boos would have been I would have taken credit for those boos, but it was just like they did the thing where they showed our names up on the jumbotron with the Syracuse logo, and they were playing clown music in the background while they were introducing there, and it was just like, wow, like. This is so cool. Like, it took me back to the days of high school hockey when you're like playing your rival and they were booing us during the starting lineup. And it was just really cool. And my older brother had played Division III hockey in New England. He went to Assumption College, which I guess is Division II if you get in the nitty gritty of it. But it's like, he didn't get to experience anything like that. And so the fact that I had all those experiences as a freshman in college, I was like, I wish 18-year-old me had known about this sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, honestly, like you were saying, growing from celebrating 1,000, 2,000 and being 50,000 follower company and brand and everything you guys do. It's crazy getting picked up by ESPN, House of Highlights, Bleacher Report. Is there any specific method behind the madness? Is there anything that you're doing and or is it just putting out relatable content and kind of just trying to get the grasp of everyone?
I think that relatable content has been the thing that's been consistent. Like I can only imagine what would have happened if you had told me when I started it that it would get this big. Like, I don't think it would have ended up, happening. Right. So from day one, it was like, I want it to be known that this is someone who plays in the ACHA running this. The caption is going to sound like something your teammate would say in the locker room. We're going to make sure we're posting stuff that guys are going to want to talk about in the locker room. We're not going to post something that doesn't resonate with guys who play club hockey. And so I think that has been something that we've stayed consistent throughout. Is this is by the players for the players, and now it's funny saying that. Now 2 years removed from college, it's not exactly by the players for the players anymore. But keeping that same tone and that same relatability to the club hockey demographic has, I think, played a huge factor because as Instagram updates and Twitter turns into X and, there's new updates on TikTok and the podcasting game is ever changing. If we can stay consistent with that, we can do this anytime, any place.
It's so amazing to see a movement that you started that kind of culturally grew as you grew. You have such an active part in kind of starting a movement. And it's so amazing to see that movement has kind of moved side by side with you, with your growth. So as you progress, like the whole kind of cultic following of ACHA hockey kind of grows with it, which is just, it's amazing to see. Like, and how does it feel? Do you ever think like, this is pretty cool? Like, I started essentially like a movement, like, and you should feel that way. And it's the fact of the matter. So I think it's amazing, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words there because there have been some really unique moments where it's like, wow, I didn't really, I didn't like, yeah, like Logan mentioned, like it's cool when we post a video and it gets picked up by Spit and Chicklets. And I would always get mad in the early days because it's like, man, like Spit and Chicklets didn't even tag me. Like I found that I scraped and clawed to get that live barn footage and posted it and edited it so it looks really nice. And Spit and Chicklets post it and they can't even tag me. And then I was like, well, let me take a step back. If I don't post that video, Spit and Chicklets never sees it. And then millions of other people never see that video. So I learned, pretty quickly, like I can't get upset if we don't get the credit for it because, we're still making progress. Right. And I think one of the coolest stories I have in terms of that is I remember junior year of college, I took a internship at a summer camp. It was an all boys camp in Western Mass. And I'm sitting down at the table and one of the kids who I just met, like another counselor, was talking about, something club hockey related. And it was like, that's so sick that Liberty like wears Hawaiian jerseys. And I'm like, 4 years ago, nobody would be talking about Liberty's Hawaiian jersey. Like, and he had no idea I ran Hockey House Pod. And then, conversation starts going like, oh, I played club hockey at Syracuse. Where'd you play? And he's like, oh, no way. I played it at Western Michigan. I was like, oh, no way. I was like, do you know what the Hockey House Pod is? He was like, yeah, like I love their stuff. I was like, that's me. Like I run that. And it was just so cool to see like, people, it's locker room talk, it's kitchen counter talk, it's hanging around on the couch with your buddies while you're watching an NHL game talk. Like the fact that is now a conversation. And honestly, I think Logan offers a really good perspective of it too. But like even just junior hockey kids, like I remember hearing my brother when he was in U16s, like there were kids in his locker room talking about like which club hockey schools they want to play at. I'm like, I would have laughed if you told me to pick some club hockey schools as a 16-year-old.
Yeah. It's crazy. So funny you say that. I mean, it's kind of the next thing that we're going to go to. Like, as Frank was saying, you started the movement like ACHA versus the world. Like, there's kids that will play in tier 2 junior A anywhere and are considering going to the ACHA over anywhere else. And D3s going to play another year of juniors, anything like that. And then now there's kids just going straight out of youth AAA, going straight to ACHA. And as you were saying, like, that's a lot of credit to you guys. And there really wasn't a base for that anymore. And it's crazy to just see how it's developing. And really the big question is, as it starts to grow, is like, these players, like, what decision do they make? D3, juniors, ACHA? I know you said with your brother, like, he was in D3 and didn't get any of that, which is expected. I mean, we're hockey guys. We know how the programs are kind of treated at those levels. And it's just kind of seeing your perspective and the advantages of doing ACHA over something else.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think it's one that sometimes gets lost when we're doing all this. I think a lot of people do. There's a lot of people in the hockey world who like still think what we're doing is crazy, and they're like, club hockey isn't college hockey. Like, stop telling people that. And the thing I would say to that is, like, if I was at Syracuse and we went and played Norwich, would we win? Absolutely not. We would lose by 30 goals. Like, if we played Hobart, we would lose by 40 goals. I'm not saying that club hockey is better than college hockey, but I am going to tell you that all of my teammates that started freshman year at Syracuse graduated from Syracuse. You know, there's a lot of Division III schools where these kids commit and the coach overcommits 20 kids and then they all get cut and then all of a sudden they're transferring after a year. And so I think the biggest thing that I've said through this process is, like, I just want people to go to schools where they're going to enjoy the college life. They're going to get to play the game they love, and they're going to get to graduate with a degree that's useful. And so I think that gets lost in the shuffle of, like, is club hockey better than D3? Like, I think there are a lot of schools that I would argue you get a better experience than a small D3 school, but that's not discrediting the University of New England's, the Plymouth States of the world, who are really good hockey programs at the Division III level, where you get, you know, the cool backpacks, you get to play at a rink on campus that gets big fans. Like, I just, at the end of the day, in this crazy transfer portal, CHL to NCAA era that we're about to enter, like, I just want more kids choosing the school that they want to play college hockey at and get a good experience. And so I think that is something that we have honestly tried to focus on a lot, especially in the last 2 years with the ever-changing landscape of college hockey.
I think there's a lot of kids that could benefit from knowing more about it, knowing that it exists. For me personally, I wish I knew more about it when I was younger. I thought when I aged out of midgets or wasn't going to junior camps and whatever, you know, it was just like, what do I do now? I wanted to go to college. I had some ideas of what I wanted to do as a professional in the field that I'm in now, but I would have I just stopped playing, you know, for like a couple years. And then it was like, okay, it's just beer league and whatever tournaments, you know. If I would have known more about it, thought more about it, you know, it just wasn't like, this is like in 2003, you know.
Well,
it's not on the coverage, you know.
Yeah, and an interesting perspective I heard, you know, we have a very good relationship with both club hockey leagues, AAU, college hockey, and, you know, especially with the ACHA, Craig Barnett does a great job. I remember talking to Craig, you know, he oversees all the ACHA operations. I think executive president is his title. Not exactly sure on that one, but I remember him talking about, like, why USA Hockey loves the ACHA. He's like, if the ACHA didn't exist, where would all these kids play hockey? And then they probably would be less likely to play men's league after that, right? Like, exactly what you're talking about, Jay. It's like, if you don't have a place to play in college, you know, and you don't have an intramural league or there's not a men's league nearby, you know, like, how are you, you know, keeping up with the game and keeping that passion going? And it's like, that's why USA Hockey loves us, because, you know, if we have 500 club teams, that's 500 times 20 student athletes who are continuing to play the game they love. And, you know, they're more likely to end up playing men's league.
And I think that kind of parlays into the next point, right? Like, every hockey journey, as you go deeper and deeper in the funnel, kind of tightens a little bit. You have to make those, like, crucial decisions, right? Like, I mean, with all the influx of all the junior leagues that exist right now, making those decisions. And then more importantly, like, it sucks, but kind of accepting, like, hey, like, life has to go on. So with that comes, okay, I'm going to go to college. And now what do I want to do? I want to still play hockey? And being able to just have options, right? Like, and I think, and I know you agree with this as well. I'm a fan of club hockey. I don't think it should be called club hockey because I don't think it's club hockey. I actually think it is college hockey because you're in college, you're competing for a national championship. Like you said, you're having the time of your life. You're taking in the college experience and you're putting years of that experience into which will then become your life passion in a degree. And I think, again, it's just being able to have another option. And I think that that's the thing that gets lost in it. Like now we're living in obviously with the social media age, it's like pitting it against each other. It's a yes or no, or you're for it or you're against it. I think it really isn't about that. I think what you've done a really good job of is, like Jay said, is just kind of educating another path, another area where somebody could continue their hockey journey that is pretty damn fun, man. Like when you write it all down and you see it, and that's what you're kind of capsulating, which is, it's amazing. Like it's a really cool thing. So what you're showing to the world of that and building that knowledge, it's a cool thing for sure. So yeah.
And to what Frank said, I mean, you guys at Hockey House were really like the first people that opened my mind that I was like, okay, I don't have to be just a hockey player for the rest of my life. I'm like, I can go to school. I can go somewhere that I can pursue something that I want to do. And eventually I made the decision to step away from playing just because of the company. But that's the reason I'm here, is because of wanting to play club hockey. And I think a lot of kids are waking up to that fact. And really, I fully 100,000% support you on the fact that like you need to go somewhere where you're going to get a degree. We're all more than just hockey players. It's not going to last us forever. And I just love that.
Yeah. And I know we talked about too, Logan, like even just the resources, like the resources that you have at your university to support your business endeavors, right? Like if you had chosen a different school, you might not have access to that. And it's like you mentioned, like, yeah, you ended up there because of club hockey and you're no longer, part of the club hockey program, but it's like, you're still in a good position where you're going to, when you get that piece of paper at the end, you'll have endless opportunities.
100%. And it's crazy. And that kind of moves into the next thing, like with these schools, like these big name schools. I know Jay and Frank both went to UCLA. They're on the fringes of becoming a potential Division I team in these next few years. And same with Oregon, same with all the schools like that. Like what's your thoughts on those schools wanting to make that switch, or if they will?
Yeah, I think when the CHL news came out, that major junior hockey players in Canada would be able to come down and be eligible to play Division I hockey. I think a big thing a lot of people jumped at right away is like, that's going to be so good. Like all these schools are going to join, all these club teams are going to go NCAA. And I was, I've been in the meetings with school administrators who don't know that the club hockey team exists and would rather it didn't exist than give it money. And I think, a lot of people forget that college hockey is not college football. It is not college basketball. Administrators are not, going to the grocery store and looking to pick up a hockey team on the way out. Like they have bigger fish to fry. And so I think, these club programs, these big name brands like the Oregons, like the UCLAs, like the USCs, like those teams that are in the Big Ten, Indiana winning the ACHA M2 national championship last year was huge for brand recognition. And I think honestly, if those big brands, don't join their bigger conferences down the line, I think it's only going to just make them better club hockey programs. And I think, from a recruiting perspective, you get to see through social media, kids are getting, an opportunity to view some of these bigger schools that they might not have ever considered. And I think that trickle down effect will happen with club hockey too, because, you're going to see less American born players competing in NCAA now that major junior players can compete. And then, that's going to put more players to, pick from in Division III. And then there's going to be Division III guys who get it cut out and they're looking for spots at the ACHA M1 level. And it just trickles down from there. And I think it's interesting what Frank mentioned too about the term club hockey, because I actually had a really interesting conversation one time with a GM in the ACHA, which is just crazy. Like, yes, these ACHA teams have GMs. Like not only like some varsity teams don't have GMs. They just have a head coach that does all the recruiting. But he said, hey, I love what you guys do. I just don't like how often you use the term club hockey. And my argument to that is I've actually gone full circle on the club hockey terminology, because I went from being like, let's not call it club, let's call it non-varsity college hockey, which is just like a mouthful. And then I realized like people just know it as club hockey. And I think making the argument, hey, this is what we're going to call this level of hockey. I'm fine if we want to call it club, but let's have respect for it. Like I would rather at the end of the day, people have that. And I think that's only going to happen with these changes. I think, teams like UNLV, I think they would be like my front runner in this department of teams that'll make the jump eventually. I think they have a great amount of respect for, Coach Powers at Arizona State University. His big thing when people would ask him about joining NCAA was, we want to be the best club hockey program, and then we'll think about going NCAA. Like I think UNLV was a game away from winning the national championship last year. I think they want to win that national championship at the club level, and then, hope that some donor overnight is like, why don't we have NCAA hockey here in Vegas, right? Like that's the recipe. That's what happened at Arizona State. They won a national championship, and 2 weeks later, there was somebody, offering to fund the whole NCAA program. And I think that's like the lottery ball, right, for a lot of club hockey programs. And then, you see teams who are club hockey programs, and then, like a Keene State, and then all of a sudden, hey, their school wants to add NCAA Division III, and then they get the call overnight that they're going to go. They're in the middle of their first season right now, and they have 5 former ACHA players on their roster, and I think they're like above 500, and they've beaten some other really good NCAA teams. So, I mean, I'm biased, right? Like, how does Syracuse University not have varsity hockey in a place like upstate New York where you have Colgate, Cornell, Clarkson, RIT, like all those schools? Like, I would love for that to work out. I just think those Power 5 schools would be the targets first. I think the Big Ten is easy to look at. Like we mentioned, the UCLAs and the Oregons and the Indianas. Throw Purdue in that mix as well. We saw with Illinois pre-COVID, it seemed like the writing was on the wall that they were eventually going to get a team, and then that dissolved pretty quickly once the pandemic broke out. But I think that's where you look first, is look for schools that have the resources to build a rank. And then if you just look at college hockey too, like Augustana is ranked for the first time in program history. Like I wouldn't have been able to point to that on a map 5 years ago. You might see some smaller schools too, like the club hockey world. There's a lot of schools we've never heard of, like Minot State and Jamestown and University of Mary. Like, do those schools decide, hey, we want to make the jump to Division I athletics, and we're going to bring our hockey team with us? So I think those are kind of the two sides of it. I see like small athletic departments who think they can profit off of having a hockey team, and then big hockey programs that are big schools that have, well-developed club hockey programs with good national recognition.
I always think that having a club hockey team, especially now in these days, is actually a huge plus for even a school that has a Division I program, right? Because you're seeing a lot of these cases, especially what happened like at Arizona State. They pulled an ACHA guy up with the big club, and he scored at Alaska. So it's always like just another amazing incentivizing tool, I guess you could say, to where they're using the club hockey guys to be like, look, these guys are here, they're having fun, they're playing their game, and there's an option for them that I can bring them up if you guys, you scholarship guys are getting a little too cushy there. This could be something where it could be something where, your spot isn't guaranteed,
Yeah, and I think that'll be a huge factor when we look at some of these schools starting next season when the scholarship numbers go down, right? Like the rosters have to be a certain size. I know in years past, if it was 28 scholarships, they would give out 28 scholarships, and then they have, 32 guys on the roster, and that won't be the case moving forward. So I could see that happening in a lot of schools where, when the injury bug hits in early February, hey, we're going to call up a couple guys from the club team, because we don't really have any other options. The roster sizes can only be a certain size. I think that could be a very good option. I think we see it the most common with goaltending, because it is so hard to, like, every goalie wants to play. You're not going to want to go to a school where you're getting recruited and you're going to walk on campus as the third string goalie. That happened at Penn State, right? They had a kid playing on the ACHA team at the end of the year. He was doing some practices with them, and then they said, hey, like, instead of recruiting a third goalie, like, this kid from the club team's pretty good. He could probably slot in as our third goalie. And then all of a sudden, a couple of injuries hit, and he's on SportsCenter top 10 plays making a backdoor save against Colgate. And it's just, I think that's, we see it all the time in the NHL. The e-bug happens every now and then. I think that'll be the case with some of these club goalies who get the call at the NCAA level.
Yeah, that's stellar. I mean, just like you were saying, like Augustana, like TSU is now going to be a Division I team, which is super cool, super crazy. Never would have even seen that in my deck of cards of them coming to be an NCAA Division I team. And their first player was from club hockey.
Yeah, it's crazy too. And like Tennessee State was a team that we latched on early on because they had plans to start as a club hockey program, and they never even got to a point where they announced which club hockey league they were going to play in. And I know there was a lot of talk at the school. They don't have any club sports at Tennessee State University. Like, they don't have the infrastructure. They don't have a club sports director. And so they were building their hockey program, and they were like, why are we joining club for a couple of years and then going NCAA? We'd have to build all this club infrastructure just to not use it 2 years later. And so, they made the financial choice as a school, like, hey, we're just going to go straight to NCAA and start competing, which was really cool to see. And I'm excited for that program. But yeah, that was one like early on in the hockey house. Like, we were just always talking about Tennessee State because we just assumed that they were going to be a club team to start, and they're skipping that step.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Where do you feel is the next point of growth for Hockey House Pod? Like, what are the big initiatives? What are your big plays for it overall?
I think the biggest thing for me is getting more people involved. I enjoyed the perspective of being a player in the ACHA and, getting to line up with guys at the face-off and be like, yo, man, you got to get me on next week. Like, come on. Like, I thought that was so cool. Like, I used to joke, like, I was Ryan Whitney if he played in the AHL and the NHL while also hosting Spit and Chicklets. Like, that's how I viewed myself. I had the unique perspective of that. In terms of growth, it would be like kind of me taking a step back from this operation and just getting to oversee it and the next generation of club hockey players, because I used it professionally, right? Like, I got a lot of good social media experience. I'm sure it helped me get some internships, some jobs just through doing this. And, we're not really at a point where we're like generating revenue. So it's like, hey, like, here's this. I look at it like a sandbox, right? Like, here is this sandbox. We got all the bells and whistles in it. If you are a young college kid, playing in the ACHA, playing AAU college hockey, like talking to your teammates, like cracking jokes, like, I have the platform to do it, and I would love to share that with more people. So I think that's kind of the next chapter, because, I'm not sure how much longer I can keep, talking about club hockey. It might get a little weird if I get into my 30s and 40s and I know the final score of Adrian versus Liberty on a Saturday night. But if I can, kind of just oversee the whole operation and make sure that, there's other kids delivering that message, I think that would be the next step in terms of growth.
And with media, obviously, I know we talked about it. You were, that kind of birthed Hockey House Pod, but I mean, it's about growing the community, right? And I feel like you've done such a good job of kind of connecting a lot of different wires with the younger generation, the current generation, and a lot of it with the hockey influencers as well. Like, what are some exciting partnerships that you've seen through your course of time with Hockey House Pod that you're pretty like, wow, this is really cool. This is awesome that this came about.
The goal after I graduated in 2023 was to spend the entirety of the 2023-24 season on the road and traveling to different, club hockey venues and kind of doing like college game day style, where we would announce, hey, like, we're going to this city, we're going to this game, we're going to tour this campus. And we did that for a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. And we have all of this content that honestly we never got the time to go back and edit it all. We did a lot of stuff that got posted to, Instagram, and we had a great time doing it. And the people that we got to do that with were so appreciative of, just honestly, just like us announcing that we were going to a game, like, that was all they needed. And so we saw some really cool places and we got to meet some really cool people. But every trip that we did was like a partnership to get somebody to fund it. We worked with Optimex Sports for a really long time, who their mission was to just make professional looking websites for club sports teams on college campuses. So like, that was a slam dunk partnership with us. We worked with Rebirth Sports. They manufacture a lot of the most popular club hockey jerseys, and they outfitted us with parkas and backpacks and hoodies for the national tournaments last year. So when we were at the rink, like, we were wearing Hockey House branded stuff, and it was really cool. So there's been a handful of partnerships that are really cool, but honestly, it's been like the people partnerships that have been the best part about this whole thing. Like, I wouldn't be here talking with you guys and Logan if it weren't for the Hockey House Pod. Like, I have so many people on my phone that I can text at any given moment hey, what happened in this game? Or sometimes they're, hey, I got a lead on this. Like, this team's going to announce this big news next week. I think that's the coolest part for me because, in my, college experience, not only did I get to meet a ton of great people at Syracuse University, but I got to meet, a ton of great people who play, club hockey at Indiana, club hockey at Florida Gulf Coast. Maybe they're a coach at Utah. Like, the connections are endless, and I hope that never changes. I hope anybody who I've interacted with in this whole journey feels like they can reach out at any given moment.
With the growth of club hockey, have you seen, and I'm sure you're a bit more tapped in now with, like you mentioned, on the administrative level, are you hearing that a lot of schools are a little bit more open to maybe some additional funding, maybe talking about, I know obviously not so much scholarships, but at least some kind of financial, at least grants or rewards that they could be offering some players, or at least giving some schools some ammo to kind of work with?
Honestly, it's one of those things where it's just different every school. Like, every school is on a different path. I feel like we are trending in that direction. I mentioned sometimes these bigger Division I universities like a Syracuse, for example, they might have better resources for club sports than a smaller school. But, some of those smaller schools, they might loop their club hockey team into the athletic department. Like I mentioned, some of those no-name schools in the Midwest, and I don't call them no names as if we don't know them in the club hockey space, but maybe the average, hockey fan might not know, where Minot State is, where Indiana Tech is. Like, some of those schools, they just loop their hockey team in with the athletic department. And I think there's going to be more opportunities like that. But at the same time, we're seeing schools like my alma mater, Syracuse, where, somebody just committed, millions of dollars, and all they asked was that it go towards club sports and esports. And I think like that is a really odd grouping. Like, the growth of esports, I think in a lot of these schools has also helped the club hockey teams, because esports have become so popular and people are realizing, hey, there's more out there than just like the 12 varsity sports that we sponsor on campus. Like, there are other avenues to drive interests in people coming to school at certain institutions. And so I think that's a really cool thing to see as well. And especially, for me, and I get to talk to the guys on the team now at Cuse, and, they're telling me about how cool the club sports guy is now, and how it's so easy to order apparel and all these things. And I think that's just the goal for any school in club hockey, is to not have to jump through as many hoops at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I mean, taking a little bit a step back, like Frank's last question about like media just in general in hockey has changed the landscape drastically in the past just 5 years. Ever since COVID, it's been unbelievable for influencers, Nasher, Barber, Swaggy P, any of them. And even it affects the kids, the youth players as well. It's a big thing that is ever changing every day. So I'd just love to hear your take on just kind of media and hockey and how it's growing and what we can do.
My favorite example of this is, like, in the early days of Hockey House Pod, we would post like a highlight, and there'd just be like 50 kids from Minnesota, like ages 8 to 12, being like, Minnesota high school gets more fans. It's like, I didn't say that they didn't, right? Like, in this age of media, right? Like, you can get anything in front of anyone, right? Like, we just had a post go viral over the weekend. Minot State, the coach sent me an email and was like, hey, we're going to unveil these jerseys, and it's like Farmer Appreciation Night. Right. And there was a flannel jersey with like the blue jean overalls over it. And it's like, that's a really cool thing that, 10 years ago, I'm sure would have like gotten them a photo in the school newspaper. And now, like, I can go and post that, and it's getting picked up by other media outlets too. So I think that kind of goes back to my point of, like, I think in the hockey community, there's only so much space in terms of media. And I think there's a lot of, it gets picked up by Spit and Chicklets, Bleacher Report, Bar Down is reposting it. Like, it gets picked up by all these accounts. And I think at the end of the day, it's like the fact that we've been able to throw club hockey content into that mix, it's opened up a bunch of doors. And, the great people at BR Open Ice have, they love it, because in the middle of the summer, when I'm like clawing through old UCLA USC games and there's a fight in the third period, they're like, how did you find this video? And like, why does it have 10,000 likes today? Like, the crazy stuff like that. And, it's all just at the touch of my fingertips. And so that's been really cool. I think honestly, in terms of media, some of the coolest things that we've been able to do is the last 3 years we've been invited to the ACHA national championships and the AAU college hockey national championships. And, sometimes those streams aren't cheap. And, they're operating on hoping that, parents and family members and friends back home are going to tune in to watch, their favorite player play in a national tournament game. But, not everybody can pay, the $18 subscription fee to watch those games. So we had boots on the ground and we would just try to capture as much content as we wanted. And, if a clip goes viral of Tampa's hockey team, suddenly that gets more buzz than if they had won the national championship, right? Like there's a viral clip of them that's circulating the internet. So I just think it's so crazy. The analogy I use with the media side of it is just like throwing shit at the wall. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes there's stuff that I think is going to go viral and get picked up by Spit and Chicklets, and it gets like 200 likes. And I'm like, oh man, that was a dud. And other times, like those Minot State Farmer jerseys, like I kind of thought that might have been a reach, and it got a ton of engagement. So like at the end of the day, like there's no goal for us. There's no end goal that we're not trying to drive revenue. Like we're just having fun and we're just sharing it. And I think that goes back to kind of the original game plan of like being by the players for the players. And I think it certainly helps with today's social media tools to do that.
And with Selly, I mean, your brother has built an awesome thing. It's amazing. I have the Trinidad Tobago hat sitting up in my closet right now, and I think a lot of what you said with Hockey House, just like putting out stuff that was relatable, like that stuff was so relatable. Putting out things that are funny and people relate to it, and it's awesome to see. And I just want to see what you think is best for Selly too. Like what has been working for you guys. And I know you guys are doing team collaborations, but is it putting out these cool different hats, or is it pushing more towards the teams? I know they probably drive a little more revenue on that end.
Like I said, it's really unique. Like I mentioned, we went to the pond hockey tournament this past weekend, and the partnership there was like they just asked that we make hats for the championship team. So like that was a really cool, unique one to do. And I think honestly, it's just about getting people to rep the game of hockey and our brand, right? Like you mentioned, it's relatable. We get DMs all the time, like, how do you not have a Buffalo hockey hat? Like, how do you not have a Vegas hat? How do you not have an Ohio hat? It's like, we actually did hats for those locations already and they didn't sell well, right? Because if you want to buy an Ohio hockey hat, you're going to go on the Blue Jackets website. You're going to go on Fanatics. You're going to go buy it. You're going to buy Sabres gear at the Team Pro Shop. And you're going to go buy Vegas Golden Knights stuff at T-Mobile. So it was like, who doesn't have a hat? Like Trinidad Tobago hockey, that hat doesn't exist. Martha's Vineyard hockey doesn't exist. And I think that has kind of, it becomes a conversation starter. Like I was wearing one of the hats at my brother's bachelor party, a couple of years ago down in Charlotte, and it was Hawaii hockey. And somebody was like, oh my gosh, like what island in Hawaii did you go to? Now I feel bad because I've never been to Hawaii and I don't play for the Hawaii hockey team. But it was a conversation starter. And when I'm at the rink, it gets a good laugh because like, oh, Hawaii hockey, like that's like I had to explain to this poor woman that the hat was just it's like an inside joke that I'm wearing on top of my head. And so honestly, I think that's the goal for us. We're getting big into the officially licensed merchandise with a lot of the NCAA schools, which I think is kind of the next step. But I think it's that contrast of, hey, we might have a hat for your favorite team or your favorite city, but we also might have a hat for your crazy relative that lives in the Outer Banks and is a hockey fan. Like that kind of balance to drive, different demographics to our site is really cool. And I think that's been a unique challenge for me, coming from, Jay and Frank, I'm sure you guys will relate to this, but it's like I came from a place where I'm trying to post content about the ACHA and the only goal is for it to get as many likes as possible. And now it's like completely different because the posts on social media, when you're trying to sell something to someone, they don't get as many likes. And so it's like, how do you measure stuff if it's doing well and what's the return on investment in that? So, I think I struggled early on in my time at Selly because it was frustrating. Like, I feel like this post should be getting a lot more likes based on the experience I have, or like maybe we should post this to get more likes. But oh wait, that's not what we're here for at the end of the day. So there's been some unique challenges with it, but it like you said, any opportunity to work in hockey and think hockey ideas and talk to hockey people is great.
That's why we're here.
So I know this is a tough one, but out of your course of time with Hockey House Pod, what are your top 5 marquee moments, landmarks, and things that are just like embedded in your brain to be like, okay, these are really rad moments within this life cycle?
Ooh, I mean, I can give you 5. I'll give you 5 and then we'll go back and rank them retrospectively. But
Okay.
first thing that comes to mind, and like I mentioned, like just crazy stories. I feel like that's what I think of the most. But first one that comes to mind is we were playing as Drexel. It was my senior year, and I was defenseman. I'm chasing down an icing. The Drexel kid has about a half a step on me, and the whistle blew really quickly, and I was like getting ready to make contact. Total accidental play, but I rocked this kid from behind, and it shouldn't have been icing. Like, he beat me to the puck. I rocked him from behind. No call. And the next day I wake up and I'm checking the Hockey House Pod DMs, and this kid on Drexel DMs the account, and he goes, "Hey, I just want to know, do you think this is a clean hit?" And it's me driving this kid into the end boards at Drexel. Wow. Like, he knew what he was doing. And I'm like, "Hey man, that's my bad. That's my bad. Like, so sorry." And he took it like a champ too. He was like, "I'm just busting your balls, man. Like, appreciate everything you do for the ACHA. Like, just giving you a hard time." But I was like, oh my God. I remember being so red-faced looking at my phone because, like, this crazy world where I've created a portal for people to send, clips on the ice.
Damn, that's incredible. Actually, I love that story.
Yeah. Another really cool moment for me, there are some really long nights and when we would go to the national tournaments, and, I, as a junior and as a senior in college, like, I didn't go on spring break because spring break aligned with going to the national tournament. And, that was a decision I made. My friends have great spring break stories. Like, I have really great stories from the New England Sports Center in Marlborough, Massachusetts, and Centene Ice Center in St. Louis. Like, those are my spring breaks. But something that was really rewarding, like I mentioned, those are really long days. There's hockey all day, every day, and we can cover as many games as we want to in that span. But something I will never forget is it was maybe like 11 o'clock at night, and there's still some games going on. But, David Herman, who came on in the early process of all this and, went to Ohio University and long story short, he became our editor and my right-hand guy because, he didn't maybe have the hockey knowledge and the experience of playing the ACHA, but he was a hockey guy who understood the ACHA. And he was also really good at editing the episode. He was really good at taking photos, and he was a huge help in our growth as a podcast. He's overworked. I'm overworked. And we're like, let's get out of here and let's get McDonald's and go back to our hotel. We're weaving through one of the rinks in Marlborough. It's like a maze getting out of this rink with all of the sheets they have.
Awful.
And we walk through this rink, and at the time, like I mentioned, we had done like custom Hockey House Pod jackets for last year's tournament. We didn't have that the year before. I had one hoodie that I bought at Dick's Sporting Goods. That was like a blank black hoodie. And I think I paid like $60 for a local embroidery place in Syracuse, New York, to like screen print Hockey House on the front of it so I could wear something like that had our branding on it. We walk into the rink, and Lawrence Tech University, their scratches were hanging above the balcony on this rink, and they had like 18 scratches. Like, this is not an exaggeration. Like, if you go on their website, they just carry an absurd amount of players. So their scratches basically served as a student section during these games at nationals. And we walk into the rink, and they're chanting Hockey House Pod. And I'm like, no way. Like, it was so rewarding. It had been such a long day, but they were so appreciative of the work we were doing. And like I said, by the players, for the players, like the fact that these guys on a Division III ACHA team that I had never heard of prior to my work with the Hockey House, like they had never met us, and they just recognized us in our DIY hoodies, and they were chanting like Hockey House Pod. And so that made it worth it. Like, we made sure to show them some love for that. But like, that's another moment that stands out to us. And now they're coming to me. But another really fun one was part of the trips that we did. We went to Lexington, Kentucky to see the midnight game between Kentucky and Louisville. And that was a bucket list item for us. highly recommend to any hockey fan listening to this to go check it out. Like, I'm not saying that the Lexington Ice Center is the greatest venue in sports, but it is definitely something that you should check out. There were people waiting in line, and I got a tap on my shoulder, and it was a firefighter in Lexington who was a diehard Kentucky hockey fan, and him and his son listened to the show, and he had brought in patches that said Lexington Fire Department to give to us as like just like as a gift. Like, he knew we were coming to town, and I still have it. It used to be behind my desk in my my bedroom at home, but I haven't found a place for it since moving to Quincy. But like just a patch for a fire department. Like, this guy was like, I'm a big fan of the show and I want you to have this. Like, we made sure we gave him stickers. Like, we had some promo codes for merch to give him. Like, that was really cool. And it's like moments like that where you just realize like how big of this thing, has all happened. And
Absolutely.
another top moment for me was a good friend of mine now who I had never met beforehand, Shane Rombach. He committed to Framingham State. He had played junior hockey with Herm, one of our producer. Herm's younger brother played junior hockey with his kid, Shane Rombach. He commits out of the USPHL to Framingham State, which is a Division III school in Massachusetts. They go on Elite Prospects and they screenshot his Elite Prospects photo and completely deep fry this photo to the point where it looks like it was taken on a Nintendo DS. And I went and found the original photo that Herm had taken, and I tweeted, I don't know the kid in this photo, but Herm is very important on like, you download the photos, you tag your photographers, because that's like another thing that our platform got built on. But I tweeted something along the lines of, pray for my boy David Herman. Ain't nothing wrong with him, but a D3 hockey team just deep fried the shit out of his photo. And the tweet like kind of went viral because it was literally like crystal clear photo and this like terrible blurry photo. Domino effect of this one is the kid decommits from Framingham State. He then plays a year of club hockey at Concordia Ann Arbor in Michigan. Has a great time there, but he only went there because that was like the only place he could go, and he backed out of Framingham State. Now he's in his second season at Florida Gulf Coast. He gets in-state tuition down there because I think it's his aunt or uncle lives down there. And they're going back to the national tournament for the second year in a row. And he's having the time of his life. He gets to play hockey in Fort Myers, Florida. And the only thing he has to deal with is there's a hurricane every fall that the boys have to move out. Like, that's the worst thing that he has to deal with. And now we're great friends and we joke about it all the time, but it's like, I didn't even know this kid. And I wasn't chirping him. I was just chirping this D3 hockey team who like didn't even have the decency to like download a photo. They just like screenshotted it and posted it. And it's like the power of this hockey house now, the hockey house now has this kid playing club hockey at one of the coolest schools to play in the country. And that was really cool. And then I would say fifth and final one for me is just, the handshakes. The handshake line was always really cool for me, especially my senior year. Not saying that I got the Derek Jeter treatment on my farewell tour, but every time we played a team for the final time, just to get to talk with another team's coach and have them say thank you for everything that I had done for ACHA. And like I said, just battling with guys who'd say, hey, like, you got to get so-and-so on the pod, or like, hey, my buddy plays out here, get him on the pod next. And, shooting the shit about our terrible takes about club hockey. Those were really cool. So I think like a lot of the handshake lines my senior year are something that I'll never forget. And those are 5 moments that stand out to me. And I've always joked someday I loved writing in high school. And I think when I'm all said and done, like a coffee table book about this whole experience would be so cool to go back and do, because those are just 5 stories off the top of my head that I can think of. And I know there's, anywhere from 30 to 100 more just like that.
Man,
Dude, that's amazing, man. That is amazing.
That's unbelievable. Those are great stories. And I mean, as we start to get to the end of this and your next big thing, and we're all wondering who's your pick for nationals? Who's your conventionals? Who's your sleeper pick?
We've been doing like the Hockey House Power Rankings, just something different to shake it up. And I actually had we use our own computer ranking. I don't do the ranking, but somebody has helped me come up with a formulated ranking that we think is a little more accurate than the ACHA's ranking. But I actually had a coach reach out to me.
No.
You got to be careful with this ranking, because I just had a recruit tell me that we're not a top 10 team, and we are a top 10 team, but they saw your ranking that doesn't have us. I'm like, hey, All right, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to do this. I'm sorry, but I completely get that. So I have been tuning into the rankings a little bit more. I know I mentioned UNLV at the start of the show. I think they're a team that I think a lot of people are going to pick, but it's every year it's the team that everybody thinks is going to win has some heartbreaking loss. And I think, schools like Adrian College figure out a way every year to get to that last game. Minot State has had some hiccups along the way. But man, I don't know. I don't know about nationals. I think D2 at least. I think this is the year that Florida Gulf Coast gets it done. They've had some heartbreak the last couple years.
Love the D2 pick.
That would be a D2 pick I would give right there because they lost in double overtime to UMary a couple years ago. They got screwed out of a tiebreaker the year after that, and then last year they end up losing, in the semifinals. So I think they're due. They kind of seem to be knocking on the door every year. And like I mentioned, my good friend Shane Rombach's on the team, so I'd be rooting for them in that one. Man, M1 is so tough to pick.
Yeah.
There's just so many teams in the field. And last year we had so many upsets. So it's like maybe there's going to be less upsets this year. And I would go chalk. The team I would watch out for a sleeper pick would be Jamestown because they've lived in the shadows of Minot State for a number of years, and their hockey program has only gotten better with that rivalry in North Dakota. They have had a really good year so far. I just think there's a lot of hype around UNLV, and those boys are going to have an uphill battle because they want to get back to the national championship game. But I think they also have a target on their back. Like they had the biggest win in club hockey history, right? So if you're playing against UNLV, don't you want to beat the team that beat the NCAA team? Yeah. And I think that's some extra motivation for teams heading into nationals. So I would love to see a team like Jamestown. They got upset. It was actually one of the biggest upsets in ACHA history when they lost to Pitt in the first round last year. So I think they're going to come back a little more prepared in this year's national tournament. And then M3, it'll be the last year of Hope College, which I think will be a sigh of relief for a lot of coaches in the ACHA. They will be moving up to Division I ACHA, which is they're due for, and there's a lot of great people at that program as well. But I think that program is going to want to get it done in their final year at the M3 level. So that would be my pick there. And then women's, it was like the first time in what felt like 100 years that Liberty didn't win it. So I think that would be a team to watch out for on the women's one side of things. And then, women's two is always really funny because it seems to be two Canadian schools every year going toe to toe. It's Assiniboine Community College and a Sioux College in Ontario. So a little bit of chalk in some of those picks, but some interesting ones elsewhere.
So nationals this year, you guys are obviously heading down there. Anything special you guys are planning? Any activations?
Yeah, it's actually it's still up in the air. Honestly, it's now that I've gotten older, it's a little less. It's a lot harder to make it work with the schedule. So we're hoping to get down there for maybe just a weekend to catch some of the action. So it'll probably look a little different this year. I think there might be more opportunity. It's funny being in person, the amount of stuff we miss. Like we had a game last year. I was over on Rink 1 and I left because, Keene State was up 4-1 on Miami of Ohio. And I was like, all right, this game's over. I'm going to go to the other rink. Miami, Ohio storms back and wins in regulation by 2 or 3 goals. And it's like, we missed that. Like we were over on the other rink. I know. Getting footage that didn't matter and we missed it. So I think we're going to be remote for a lot of the coverage this year, which I think means like I can watch all of the games on one screen. It won't be from the POV of an iPhone, which I think makes some of the coolest footage when it's like us on the glass getting some footage, but I think it'll offer a different perspective. And we're hoping to honestly have a little more collaborations with the teams that are going there. Hey, if you're going to go and you're filming this game, like let us know if you got photos, videos, send them here. Like I think it'll be a little different because we'll be, like I said, more remote this year, but always fun, always exciting, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, hopefully we get some BDT times Hockey House here for some nationals. Hopefully we can get something cooked up for it.
Oh yeah, that's what we're hoping for. And like I said, I think the coolest thing, I've talked to Logan about it, I mentioned it at the top of the show with you guys, but I think at this point, it's just the brand collaborations are, who can we help and who can we partner with to grow Hockey House? Because it has done so much for me. I would love to return the favor and help out some other brands. And I think that's the cool thing about the hockey community is everybody seems to be so open to doing these collaborations.
I mean, perfect kind of segue into the end of this interview, but me, Jay, and Logan, our whole mission with this is just to continuously build the community of hockey. And that's why talking to you, talking to just people in different realms, being able to just have, again, just amazing knowledge that we can all together show that this amazing game of hockey, we're growing the community together, we're uniting on so many levels. And it isn't, what I love about what you said is it just isn't about like generating the revenue. It's just like, we think that it's funny and it's our life, and that's what makes it authentic, and you can't fake that. And I really feel like if there's one thing that we all want to say, and these guys can chime in as well, but you can tell that by what you're giving to the world, it's authentic and it's rad, man. Like I really give you a lot of props, and we're so thankful to have you on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And like I said, I think it's really cool that you guys have joined up to do this. I'm proud to be one of your first guests, and like I said, I think this is gonna be really cool. And like I said, just kind of honored that you guys thought I'd be a good fit to come on.
Hey, man, we're just happy you responded to our DMs a long time ago.
Yeah, we're gonna cook something up too. Like I said, we've been really busy too, and I'm sure there's a brand activation down the line for us to partner up with too.
Yeah, I do want to throw one thing on. Sorry, Logan, but one thing from a friend, Louis Azadi from Weber. Heartbroken. They just lost. Now they got to go to regionals, but hey, they're going to fight their way back. But he just wanted me to tell you that the Weber boys love you, love Hockey on Spot. So
the Weber boys have, I'll chime in one bonus story before the buzzer here. Weber State has one of the coolest stories last year. They were essentially playing in a game that didn't matter. They'd already been eliminated from Nationals contention. Third game of the round robin, and they're playing spoiler against a Northeastern team that had to win. It didn't matter how they did it. They just had to win. I'm going to go back and watch this video because it gives me chills, honestly, just thinking about it. But like, Weber State was killing a 5-on-3. These guys were blocking shots like it was game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. Yeah. I think I tweeted something very similar to that. Like, I cannot believe these guys have nothing to play for and they're blocking shots like this. Yeah. They go on to win this game in overtime, and they eliminated Northeastern. Indiana was back at their hotel watching the game, basically popping champagne because it pushed Indiana into the final four. Indiana wins. They go on to win the national championship in overtime. There's the dog pile when Indiana wins it in overtime. And then maybe 30 seconds later, the guys are pointing up in the crowd at the Weber State boys. Yeah. And because they knew they wouldn't have gotten there without Weber State blocking shots on a 5-on-3 with nothing to play for. And so I'm hoping that the Weber State boys can work some of that Indiana magic, because Indiana crawled their way through regionals last year and went all the distance. So maybe there's some good karma coming the way of the Weber State fellows this year.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
Pulling for them. It's and like Frank was saying, and Jay, like it's so awesome. I mean, BDT has been such a pleasure to grow throughout the ACHA with BDT. It's been a big market for us, and just offering these guys like a professional thing has been great. And you're a lot to thank for that. And last thing, like, give everyone an update on what you're doing, just a quick relapse of what's coming next for the companies, and just things you want to shout out. If you want to be contacted anywhere or find you anywhere, you can put it here.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to find me is a DM. My personal Instagram is at the Mack Murphy, which is funny. I used to be Mack Murphy. I used to be Mack Murphy 14, and then I got to college and 14 wasn't available. So I was like, I can't be Mack like me. Oh, I love the alliteration of Mack Murphy. So I went with the Mack Murphy as a freshman in college, and then I snatched it up on like Snapchat, Twitter, Venmo. Like, it's so funny. Like, they're like, what's your Venmo? And I'm like, the Mack Murphy. Like, it sounds so ridiculous. Like, I'm trying to explain to my girlfriend's mom why my Venmo be Mack Murphy. So that is the best way to contact me. That is the best way to get my attention. If not, and you can contact the Hockey House Pod at Hockey House Pod on all channels. And then the email address is thehockeyhousepod@gmail.com. So those are the best ways to reach out to me. Got some stuff cooking. Like you mentioned, Logan, it's nationals prep time. So we'll do that. And then, in terms of the hat world, we got some really cool collaborations coming with NCAA teams that we're super stoked about, and the summer launches as well. So it's that's kind of what it's going on. Like I said, I'm playing men's league 2 times a week, which is really fun. I was a workhorse in college. Like, I just logged a lot of minutes. Like, I honestly love being on the ice. Like, I'm probably the only sicko who gets fired up when I learn we have 3D. Like, I'm gonna get to go the whole game tonight. I love doing that. I don't have to go to the gym.
I probably got 10 or 15 years on you, and I'm still like that.
Yeah, I know that. Like, I hope that's where I'm going to be in 10 to 15 years, right? Like, I don't want to have to go to the gym. I don't need a Planet Fitness membership. Like I'm going to get all the cardio I need skating twice a week playing 3D. So
I got a 10-month-old baby and I'm still trying to get out as much as I can, man.
Yeah. Jane are actually, we're playing in a tournament this weekend. So
We're playing against each other.
playing against each other.
oh no.
So we'll obviously win, but
Winner.
That's that's honestly, that's when people say, what do I have got going on? We had our pond hockey tournament this past weekend and like, we're already looking forward to the next tournament we're playing in March.
Yeah.
So it's like, going up north in the North Country in Berlin, New Hampshire. I tell people it's like the Little League World Series of men's league tournaments.
Yeah.
They pack the barn. It's like a small town. It'll be like a 9:40 game. If the local team's playing someone else, there'll be like 100 people there for a men's league game.
that's amazing.
It's so sick. So like, I'm already thinking about that later in March.
Okay, cool, man.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, boys. Anything else?
Mac, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate you, man.
Amazing stories. So just stoked on your success and everything you're doing for club hockey, man. It's incredible.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks again for Matt coming on. What an interview. Again, so much good information on club hockey where we talked about it in the interview, but I don't really think it should be called club hockey. It is college hockey. And again, just being able to create another avenue for players to continue their playing career. It's awesome. And so happy that he's kind of at the forefront of the movement.
Yeah. I know the podcast talked about it enough. I know I said many things, but Mac's an amazing human being. Super cool that he kind of made this path for players. And also, I mean, for ACHA and the level of you can build a business, you can build a brand while you're playing hockey and taking something serious. And there's just a lot of different takeaways from that. And always remember to love the game and have fun.
Yeah, that was a great podcast. I mean, learned a lot about a league I didn't really know much about. Super cool that he's, working in hockey. I think that's a dream for a lot of people, especially growing up playing. Can't thank him enough for his time. I love the stories.
Yeah, boys. Episode 2 in the books. Thanks again to our sponsors, Buddy Hockey Club, Bambino Shave Cream, and Best Damn Tape. And thanks for everyone for listening, taking the time. It means a lot to us. And we'll catch you guys next time.